What's going on, everyone? Tony at the Cold Case Project back again, and today we got something special I wanted to bring to your attention. As I've told you before, the main focal point of this channel is just the the thousands upon thousands of cases that just lay cold and just don't get the attention they deserve while we see the same news broadcast seemingly on a daily basis. I might sound like a broken record saying this because you've heard me say it in each and every one of on a lot of my videos, but that's why I'm here. That's why I talk about the cases I talk about. Now, for those of you pretty familiar with the world of true crime, we may have seen this abandoned building before. Now, a little backstory. I personally initially found this case probably about 5 years ago. I was just looking up some Doe cases and, unlocking my inner sleuth. And living next door to Missouri and Illinois, thought, well, let's look up Little Jane Does. And it brought me to this case, the 1983 murder of a young girl between the ages of 8 to 11 found in an abandoned building in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, just a little backstory here for those of you who don't know. On February the 28th, two teenagers went into an abandoned building, and they were just kind of rummaging through some stuff, seeing what they could find. And as they go and they're looking through the rooms, they find something laying in debris. They find the body of a young girl. Now, there's many photographs available online. For sake of YouTube, I am not going to show these photos. You can definitely look up and find them yourself. You can also see them in the resource I'm about to share with you very soon. But from here, police jumped right on. They interviewed around. They tried to find out if there were any missing children in the area. They contacted schools, and they did all they were able to do with the resources that they had. Like many cases, you find this, but unfortunately sometimes, whether like this case, is you'll hear later on, if it's someone in an area that they're not from, nobody obviously knows who this person is. So I went online, did a little bit of digging, and I thought, interesting. I saw the dates, the timelines. I saw something that really caught my eye. Now, as I was doing my digging, I found something that I found very fascinating. So, on February the 25th, 1983, a young girl by the name of Sharon Cole went missing. This young girl, by the way, was 12 years old. The girl, Little Jane Doe, was said to be between 8 and 11. So I'm like, well, age seems about right. Said she was about 5'6". Now, the girl, the body that was found, was 4 feet 10 inches without a head. So I thought, well, that could add up. And then the thing that really, really caught my attention was when I read, the one thing that she had on at the time was a gold sweater. Now, for those of you who've seen, the young girl who was found was also wearing a yellow sweater. And I thought, this is a very, very interesting, kind of fascinating lead. Then, however, even though she went missing on February the 25th, 1983, details were really, really few and far between on this one. She went outside to play at her residence in New York, and sometime around, I believe it was like 5:30, and was never seen again. Now, with all this said, however, we then take into effect this little girl would have had to have traveled from New York all the way to Missouri to where she was found over the span of the next 3 days. I'm like, just doesn't seem to make any sense. A lot of these things look like they added up, but they didn't. So I continued looking. I found the case of Kelly Staples, who was a young girl, age 6, who went missing in January of 1980 from Chicago. Like, well, she would have been kidnapped. However, what happened between January of 1980 to February of 1983? Like, that's another dead end. Now, for those of you who've followed this case, it has hit a number of snags along the way, as police made press releases and tried to do whatever they could to try to get a name to young St. Louis Jane Doe. You could look at all the serial killers who were around and were prominent in black communities, such as Alton Coleman, a notorious spree killer who had killed in Wisconsin, who killed in Ohio, Gary, Indiana, Michigan, to even the man to the right, Vernon Brown. Now, Vernon Brown has been a man whose name did come up in this case because he was murdering young preteen black girls and sexually assaulting them. Names always came back and forth, but there's never been any solid leads saying who did this to this girl and who is this girl. Now, a couple days ago, I was scrolling through some of my comments. And as all of you know, I do check each and every one of my comments. I try to get back to you as soon as I can. But I got a recommendation to go to Tubi and look up the documentary for the St. Louis Jane Doe, which brings me to the main reasoning behind me posting this video. So I went to Tubi and I found Our Precious Hope. This is a film by a young man named Edrar Sosa, and I actually spoke with him a little bit over Facebook today, and I was really excited to check it out because, like I said, some cases just get you, and you want to see resolution to them. For me, I've talked multiple times on this channel about the disappearance of the Passenbegovich sisters. I've spoken on the Chicago Ripper crew. I've spoken of some of these heinous crimes and the way they've affected the cities and they've affected the people around them. And this story to me is the definition of that. And the great thing about this documentary is it's about 2 hours, super in-depth, because if all you do for this case is look up most blogs, you're going to hear pretty much exactly what I just told you a few minutes ago. You're going to hear about the girl being found. You're going to hear she was found by 2 guys looking for a pipe for a car. You're going to hear that her sweater got sent out. You're going to a psychic. You're going to hear They misplaced the body. Her body once it was buried. You're gonna hear just so many different things, but it's so concise. But the awesome thing about this documentary is, from the beginning, they actually speak to the people. They speak to people who lived in that neighborhood and were there that day when police were called onto the scene. They talk to the police officers who are actually working this case. And all I can say is this was a bang up 4-star job. I've never, like I said, I'm not familiar with I've kind of fallen behind some of my true crime viewing, you could say, with viewing more kid related materials, but it was definitely just an eye-opening show, because you really got to see, like, one thing I actually got to learn today was from the sweater. It's always said the sweater was sent to the psychic. However, from there it was gone. Now, one thing that you never hear that you find out watching the documentary is that's not actually the case. That's not actually the way it went down. As the woman actually mailed the sweater back via certified mail, which I was like, wow. It's really just, it opens your eyes up. They speak with forensic analysis. They speak with just so much detail that you just didn't know. Most sources will tell you the young girl was sexually assaulted. However, judging by the condition her body was in, you also find out not only was she sexually assaulted, she was most likely violently physically beaten prior to her death outside of this, from what looks like it was either punches or kicks. The collection of blood that was found in her lungs showed that she suffered a horrible final hours of her death, while she was deceased when the decapitation did happen. She was alive for the rest of it. And like I said, this is a completely unscripted review I'm just giving right now on this documentary, and all I gotta say is, for all of you who love true crime, if you really like these cases that make you sit down, you're really trying to figure out what happened here. Could this person have been involved? Like, how could a young girl go 40 years and nobody has jumped out to say, that's my sister, right? That's my daughter. But yet again, just like I said, awesome job. Now, while some of this information is readily available online, you also get more analysis just from DNA testing and stuff that's happened over the last 10 years, such as, most likely, St. Louis Jane Doe in her early years was in either Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Indiana, or West Virginia. However, after her younger years, they also suspect that somewhere after that, she was also in possibly Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, and north of South Carolina. Now, keep that in mind now, because that's about to come back up in a couple of minutes. Where was she residing at the time? Now, they believe she may have been somewhere from either Missouri or Illinois. These are also potentially on the list. While, like I said, Missouri has been traced up and down at the same time, while I can just say from my own personal searching is, sorry, I've done plenty of my own research trying to dig up similar cases of girls who I thought could have been St. Louis Jane Doe. And finding girls reported missing in these areas is very, very difficult. Whether it's going to the fact of the parents were involved and they didn't want it to be found out this girl had gone through the ordeal she was in. Maybe it was a mother who just didn't want to call the police on her boyfriend. Whether it was just a family that didn't trust the police. You think to yourself, something in here just doesn't add up. Doesn't add up. Now, most likely we're looking at her being born somewhere between 1972 and 1975. Sorry, got a little cough the last couple of days. But she was, upon decapitation, she was 4 feet 10. However, it's believed with head she was probably somewhere around 5 feet 4 inches. Now, another really interesting thing that comes out in this documentary is the sweater. That's right, we're going back to the sweater now. The sweater you see right here was actually it was from Robert Bruce, and it was available in multiple popular resale stores in the St. Louis area around this time, such as Sears, J.C. Penney, Styx, Baron Fuller, and Famous Bar, retailing for around $12, so fairly reasonably priced. And the real eye-opener that we get near the end is they are actually currently working on genealogy. They're working on, through a lot of the genealogy DNA. I probably butchered the name right now, so. But they're working through a lot of this DNA to really try to finally pinpoint who was this young girl. Who was this young girl? Now, what also really caught my eye is they said that they have found like second, third related relatives of her. Now, however, it's a little complicated when you start to look at the fact that a lot of these families and people they're finding, the exact people they're finding are hundreds of years old. All right, we're talking over 100 years old. Now, as they've gotten closer to seeing who around now can possibly help them, it's been unfortunately, it's been a little bit of a bump in the road. It's been a bit of a bump in the road. You've heard that the woman who's in charge of all the DNA testing right now with this, she's tried to contact one woman who was seemingly like, all right, yeah, definitely, I'll help you out. But from that point, never answered her back. Yes, she never answered her back, unfortunately. The other was extremely, believe it or not, when they said that, we have a Jane Doe who's possibly related to you. Her response was essentially, leave us alone, don't contact us again. All right. I'm like, so you could potentially help bring closure and find out what happened. But that was the response. She was just very uncooperative and just did not want to assist the woman in getting this, which truly just unbelievable in my own personal opinion. But that's just me. Once again, my comment section right there. Go right on down. Give me your thoughts on this, please. But the one thing that, like I said, with DNA testing, the relatives, the main ancestors were traced back to Texas, Tennessee, and Alabama. All right. So, so it kind of adds up when you think so. Early life, and at some point in her life, she is in Texas, Tennessee, or Alabama. Now, most of us do know that a lot of these southern cities do have very high, black populations. So we might not really be, still have your work cut out for you a little bit, but it's definitely narrowing the amount of work you may have to do. So, as this February coming up, we're nearing the 40-year anniversary of this case. And, all I can say is when I get, is this a rerun? Is this a repeat? If I could cover these cases each and every day and continue to just bring light on them, I would do it. Right? I mean, there's just too many outlets out there that might just focus on what happened in 2018, what happened in 2020. And while that's all fine and dandy, what about these cases that you've just stacked on, the cases you've stacked on the bottom with these new ones? So please, like I told you, 100% go to Tubi, check out the documentary. You will enjoy it. All my true crime fans, go check it out. What's your opinion? Have you seen the documentary already? What do you think happened with young Hope Doe? Now, if I had to give my own personal theory of what I honestly do think happened, I'm really almost getting the sense that this is one of these. She may have been the daughter to a woman who was in an abusive relationship. And whether or not this was something where the guy hurt the mom and then hurt her. Because ultimately, 40 years have gone by and we still have never got a phone call. So I'm thinking to myself that something happened to knock a parent or two parents out of the equation here, right? It could have been that, or it could have been one of these other situations where maybe a parent died, right? Or a parent went off to war and passed. And this was someone these parents trusted with their child, unfortunately. So that about wraps this fresh video up. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Give me your thoughts on Hope Doe. Make sure you hit that subscribe as I try to get at least 4 to 5 videos out for you each and every week. Thank you so much. Have a happy, safe new year. God bless and take care.